Hello. I'm going to read a little piece to you about my exchange with the artificial intelligence. And so I'm going to put my phone here on my laptop and I'm going to read to you what my exchange was with Croc this morning. So this writing, I have given it a title. This writing is called "Your Problem is that you do not know about languageology." And yeah, I might as well just immediately start talking because languageology is the science of spoken language. And if you do not know about that science, you are in deep trouble. So my first post to which I let Croc, the artificial intelligence from XAI, to which Croc responded, my first post was this: perhaps you don't know physics, perhaps you don't know chemistry or astronomy. Not everybody knows about these hard sciences, but they are sciences and they exist. Yeah, you may have never studied it or you may have never become knowledgeable about these sciences, but they do exist. Well, likewise, languageology, the science of spoken language, also exists. And this is the clincher: not knowing about physics, chemistry, and astronomy, that is not a problem for most people, yeah? Because, you can get by. But not knowing about languageology is a huge problem. As I've said, you are having all kinds of problems because you do not know about languageology. Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'm not going to read what Croc wrote in the first response because the first response is always kind of meaningless, to say the least. But I will just continue to go to my response to Croc, which gives a kind of a general description of what I do and what languageology is. I don't find it interesting, but I want to specify more clearly what languageology is. And that's why I write, not knowing languageology implies that you do not know yourself. You can't know yourself because you use your language incorrectly. Yes, in disembodied language, you imagine you have a mind. You fantasize about inner language, that you have thoughts, but none of that is true. And it is not true in the same way that things do not fall upward, which is an example of physics, and water and oil, they don't mix. That is an example of chemistry. And the earth is not the center of the universe, which is part of my limited knowledge about astronomy. Do you get it? These are just hard truths. And so there is no inner language, and the illusion of inner language is as old as language itself. But that doesn't mean what people have been saying forever, that it is valid, that it is true. No. We have believed in the illusion of inner language forever, and we have never actually addressed this enormous falsehood, which is just an artifact of human history. There exists no language inside any human being. No, there existed no language ever. It never existed. And there is never going to exist any language in any human being. And yet, this is where we are with all our great sciences and with all our knowledge and all our printed papers and all our researches and all our data and all our graphs and all this bullshit that we have to prove that we are right and that it is really true. This is where we are. We have yet to acknowledge that disembodied language in which we do not listen to ourselves while we speak, that is our usual unintelligent, unnatural, effortful, energy-draining, dissociative, coercive way of talking, which continues to pretend that there exists language inside of us. Everybody believes that. And it is totally false. In the same way that the earth is not flat, in the same way, that water and oil are not going to mix and things are not going to fall upward. No. And it's perfectly clear why disembodied language creates and maintains the illusion of inner language, because disembodied language occurs in what behaviorists call an aversive contingency, in which you either listen to others because you're forced to listen, you have to listen to the authority outside of yourself. Somebody is important, somebody is powerful, somebody is threatening you if you do not do as you're told. So that is the aversive contingency that we're used to, where you listen to others. Listening means almost, it's almost equivalent to listening to others. Either you are listening to others or you're trying to get others to listen to you, but it is always about listening to others listening to you, or you listening to others. Also you demanding that others should listen to you, make yourself heard. Putting all this effort into your conversation, but you're not listening to yourself. So it is very evident how it is that disembodied language, in which you do not listen to yourself while you speak, creates the illusion of inner language. There's no connection. You're not listening to yourself. And so you imagine that you are having an internal conversation with yourself, which is false. It is just not true. You would instantly abandon your so-called mind the moment you speak with yourself in precisely such a manner that you would like to hear what you say to yourself, that you would like the sound, that you would like what you're saying and how you're saying it, that you appreciate yourself for being able to say your own truth. And then there would not be any such thing as your mind, your inner language, your thoughts, your internal conversation with yourself. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. And it would clarify everything if you would begin to listen to yourself and speak with yourself. So you would instantly abandon your so-called mind the moment you speak with yourself in precisely such a way. That you would like to hear it, that you appreciate it, that you enjoy it, that it is self-reinforcing. That's what that is. You see, without realizing it, in disembodied language, you don't like to hear what you say. That's why you don't listen to yourself. You produce sounds which you don't like to hear. And you also don't like to listen to others either. Because in disembodied language, we produce the noxious sound of our fear, our stress, our worry, our frustration, our hatred, our distraction, our depression, our mania, jealousy, our obsession, all of that, all negative. In embodied language, however, we like to hear what we say, because we listen to ourselves while we speak and we hear a sound which sounds good, which feels good, which expresses our well-being. Only with that sound, the sound of our well-being, our happiness, can we really know who we are. Yeah. Embodied language is the correct use of language in which we fully express and enjoy our individually lived experience. Yes, the individually lived experience, because embodied language occurs in a non aversive contingency. So you hear me having embodied language. There's no stress, there's no threat, there's no pain, there's no hurry, there's no fear. There's no aversiveness in this expression. And I express my individually lived experience with my embodied language, yes. And so that is the correct use of language. Incorrect use of language is when you don't listen to yourself, when you can't listen to yourself, when you are punished for listening to yourself. Yeah? When you are punished for not participating in the disembodied language. Yeah, gotta keep you on your toes here. So, astonishingly, we have accepted our disembodied language as normal because we were all conditioned by it. But it causes us nothing but problems that we don't know anything about this difference between disembodied language and embodied language, between listening to ourselves and not listening to ourselves. Once you know this difference, you want to stop your disembodied language. Of course, you want to stop it. It bothers you. And only then, after you've stopped your disembodied language, can you have embodied language, because the two are binary. Yeah? One has to stop for the other to begin. They cannot co occur. And there's no gradual going from the one to the other. You either have one or the other. And it's all up to you as an N of one. Yeah, an N of one, that means single subject design. It means that you are experimenting on yourself. You, as a speaker, are your own listener. It is only available to the N of one to know about embodied language, to know about languageology. The difference between disembodied language and embodied language is only known by the N of one. It cannot be known by groups of people. Groups of people are irrelevant to embodied language. In embodied language, if we ever get to speak with each other, we do not speak with each other as a group. We do speak with each other, even though we may be all having eventually embodied language, we will all be speaking from our own individual perspective. And that will unite us. That will actually bring about an entirely different group process that we have never before with our disembodied language been able to achieve. There's going to be enormous change if we begin to accept the importance of languageology. Much more important than how to use your phone, or how to use AI, or how to, all these technological things that we're now being challenged by. Oh yeah, we have to navigate so much technology. We're completely distracted from this important topic. How we talk, how talking out loud sets the stage for how we use our language. Because how we use our language is determined by how we talk. And how we talk either sets the stage for disembodied language when we do not listen to ourselves, or it is the beginning of embodied language in which we listen to ourselves. And then we use our language correctly. Correct use of language. Yeah, that means there exists no inner language. There is no internal dialogue. There's only overt language, which I speak, which you hear, which I write, which you can read. That's all there is. So, and you are only going to be able to acknowledge all of this as an individual, yeah, as an N of one. So you are only going to find out about languageology as an N of one. I know and speak and write about it because I can and because I enjoy doing that. This is why I make this video. Yeah, this is why I write about this. I enjoy doing that. I'm not teaching anything to anyone because you must teach yourself. Once you have some embodied language instead of disembodied language, you immediately experience that your embodied language is self-reinforcing. And these effects will allow you to continue with it and to explore what is the outcome of your embodied language. What are the consequences of your embodied language? Which are all good, yeah? And so as you explore the consequences of your embodied language, you prolong the the contingency in which your embodied language occurs. And so by becoming familiar with the contingency in which embodied language occurs, and by expressing that, by describing that you feel good, that you are happy, that you like to hear what you say, that it is meaningful, that it gives you understanding which you previously didn't have, that you come to peace with yourself, you feel whole, you feel present, you use your language correctly, you have better relationship with yourself and with others. Everything begins to stabilize in embodied language. And you are truly on your own. You are an individual. You are free. And that's why I say embodied language is the language of your individual freedom. Nothing can stop you basically from embodied language because you are responsible for listening to yourself. And so regardless of what happens, you can always go back to listening to yourself again. Nothing can stop you except your own history of conditioning with disembodied language. But you can come out of that dreadful history by speaking again with yourself in such a way that you begin to enjoy listening to yourself. And obviously, this will only happen if you stop listening to others or demanding that others should listen to you. Embodied language only happens in the absence of disembodied language. It also means that as you acquire with your embodied language real self-knowledge, yeah, you will turn against all the fake knowledge which was a product of disembodied language. So once you begin to have embodied language, you will have to do some translation of everything that was previously defined by disembodied language, and now you're going to describe what has happened to you and what is happening to you with your embodied language. Hey, that's a very, very different understanding of how things actually work. And that understanding will, you would say, reach a certain sense of wholeness or sense of completion. Of course, it is ongoing, it will continue for the rest of your life. You keep understanding more and more, and you keep exploring more and more, and it just keeps getting better. It's unbelievable that it is that way, but it really is. And so, but the self-reinforcement that I have described, by exploring it on your own, it will be you could say complemented. It will be it will even be better, so to speak, once you get to speak with other people who also have done what you have done. And so when people come together, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with me, you can come together with other people than me who have all attempted to listen to themselves and who have all understood that, oh wow, So listening to yourself is not trying to listen to myself. No, as long as I'm trying to listen to myself, I'm not listening to myself. And so listening to myself happens when speaking and listening go together, when they are simultaneously happening at the same rate. So the process of self-listening is very effortless, and you're not trying to listen to yourself. You are listening to yourself when you speak, whether you know it or not. And knowing it is just an awareness, is just a sense that you get when you have embodied language. Because once you have embodied language, you experience this tangible sense of well-being, because your sound expresses the autonomic response of your nervous system, in which you are what they call parasympathetically activated. And that has to do with the vagal nerve. It has to do with the fact that you are not in a fight, flight, or freeze response anymore. So once you step out of the negative contingency with disembodied language, and you begin to explore the positive contingency of embodied language, yeah, you feel totally safe and at ease. And you're not trying anything. You are just doing what you're capable of doing. And so everything will settle, everything will fall into place in embodied language. And so once we are coming together to share our embodied language together, our ongoing embodied language, which by the way is our language enlightenment. So once we come together in 2026, after the 4th of July, that's a date that I have set to sort of just stimulate you. Go do it, try it, and use that date as something to look forward to. And then after the 4th of July in 2026, which is, by the way, the 250th birthday of the United States, yeah, the country of individual freedom. So what we do then is we align ourselves with, yeah, with the core principle of what it is like to be an American. It is to be an individual and to be free. And then we align ourselves with the whole notion of what it is like to be a free human being who has the language that fits with that individual freedom. That is what is going to then be so wonderful, because we share that embodied language together, and we mutually reinforce each other's embodied language with more embodied language. And so we will have such incredible conversations once we all are able to engage in embodied language and express our language enlightenment, which is nothing else than our intelligence, than what we're naturally capable of when we are no longer involved in this coercive, negative, energy draining, disembodied language in which we were always failing actually ourselves, because we were disconnecting from ourselves. We were not listening to ourselves. Yeah. And so psychological problems will be solved. Societal problems will be solved. Relationship problems, marital problems, educational problems, problems involved in raising children will be solved. All sorts of problems will be solved because we have embodied language. We are going to, if we are doing what it takes as an N of one. Yeah. So hopefully by the 4th of July in 2026, you will have had some experience so that we can have embodied language together and reinforce each other's embodied language. That would be great, to celebrate our language enlightenment with our ongoing embodied language on the 250th birthday of the United States, and align languageology, the language of the individual freedom, with America and with the world, yeah, America's and the world's golden era. Because if we're going to have this cultural shift that, yeah, so powerfully addresses yeah, all the things that are going on in the world with our embodied language, there is going to be so much good happening because of that. So we are really advancing to a whole new way of life with embodied language. And there's no time to lose. It is urgent because all our technology is currently feeding back to us again and again every day, no matter where we look or where we are, that it is feeding back to us the annoying, troubling message that how we interact, how we use our language, it just isn't working. Things are falling apart in front of our eyes, and yes, things are disintegrating because we have never addressed this issue properly. And we need to address this. If we are to advance intellectually, we're stuck intellectually because of our disembodied language. We can only advance intellectually with embodied language. So, a gigantic cultural shift is ahead of us, and each must step up to the plate. To be the individual we have always been, but which we couldn't be because of our disembodied language. That disembodied language is our ancient group behavior, but embodied language is individual behavior. So, disembodied language is our past, embodied language is the future. The future is to the individual and to individual freedom. And this new era of languageology, it isn't going to come about by academia, science, books, printed words such as these that I'm reading to you right now, but I'm saying it. Yeah. It is only going to come about by your sound, which you hear while you speak, and you enjoy that sound. Yeah. And you will say things which are meaningful to you because you are a free, happy, and alive human being. So once we meet and talk after the 4th of July, Independence Day in 2026, this is not because you want to be recognized. No, it is because you have recognized yourself. And you will meet with those who have also recognized themselves. Yeah, and I don't need and I don't want any followers.